Seth Rollins confronts his obsession with Cody Rhodes in emotional backstage segment. Seth Rollins just admitted something on camera that has wrestling psychologists, industry veterans, and even his own family members questioning his mental state and whether WWE should have allowed this deeply personal confession to air on television. What was supposed to be a standard backstage promo turned into the most uncomfortable psychological breakdown ever broadcast in WWE history, and what Seth revealed about his obsession with Cody Rhodes is so disturbing and so unhealthy that multiple wrestlers have privately expressed concern about Seth's well-being. This wasn't a worked shoot designed to blur the lines between reality and storyline. This was a man having a genuine emotional crisis on camera, exposing insecurities, jealousy, and psychological fixation so intense that mental health professionals who reviewed the segment are calling it a textbook example of parasocial obsession and identity crisis playing out in real time. But here's what's really going to make you uncomfortable: Seth Rollins didn't just admit that he's been obsessed with Cody Rhodes' career and success. He revealed that his entire identity as a wrestler, as a man, and as a person has become so intertwined with comparing himself to Cody that he no longer knows who Seth Rollins is without Cody Rhodes existing as his measuring stick. And the way he described this psychological dependence was so raw and so painfully honest that even the camera crew reportedly felt uncomfortable continuing to film. The most disturbing part of Seth's confession was when he admitted that he secretly celebrated when Cody got injured, that he felt relief when Cody struggled, and that watching Cody succeed makes Seth feel like he's failing even when Seth himself is having career success. This level of psychological fixation goes beyond normal competitive rivalry into something that sounds dangerously close to the kind of unhealthy obsession that destroys careers, relationships, and mental health. WWE officials are scrambling to figure out whether the segment was brilliant storytelling that will create incredible television, or if they just exploited a performer's genuine psychological struggles for entertainment and need to intervene before Seth Rollins does something that can't be undone. The question everyone should be asking is, at what point does using real psychological trauma for storyline purposes cross the line from compelling television into exploitative content that damages the people involved? And more importantly, what happens if Seth Rollins can't separate the character work from his actual mental health issues? Let me tell you exactly what Seth said in this segment, why it was so disturbing to everyone who witnessed it, and what this means for both Seth and Cody moving forward. The segment was filmed in a dimly lit backstage area, with Seth sitting alone on an equipment crate looking disheveled and exhausted. The setup suggested this was supposed to be a vulnerable character moment, but what came out of Seth's mouth went far beyond anything WWE's creative team had scripted. Seth started by addressing the camera directly, speaking in a tone that was completely different from his usual confident, intense delivery. His voice was quiet, almost defeated, and he spoke slowly as if choosing each word carefully while fighting back genuine emotion. "I need to talk about something that I haven't been honest about," Seth began. "Not with the WWE Universe, not with my family, not even with myself until recently. I need to talk about Cody Rhodes and what he represents to me, because I think I've been lying to everyone about why I can't let him go." Already, the tone was unsettling. This wasn't a heel cutting a promo about destroying his rival. This was someone beginning a confession that clearly pained him to make. Seth continued, "When Cody left WWE in 2016, I told myself I was happy for him. I told everyone that he was going out to prove himself and that I respected the decision. But that wasn't the truth. The truth is, I was relieved. I was relieved because as long as Cody Rhodes wasn't in WWE, I didn't have to compete with him. I didn't have to compare myself to him every single day and wonder if he was better than me." The vulnerability in that admission was startling. Seth Rollins has built his entire persona on confidence and believing he's the best wrestler in the world. To hear him admit that he felt threatened by Cody to the point of being relieved when Cody left the company was a complete inversion of everything fans thought they knew about Seth's character. But Seth wasn't finished exposing his insecurities. What came next was even more disturbing. When Cody went to other promotions and became successful, I watched every single match, every interview, every social media post. And I analyzed everything he did, looking for signs that he was struggling, that he was failing, that maybe he made a mistake by leaving. Because if Cody Rhodes could succeed outside of WWE, if he could build something without this company, then what did that say about me? What did it say about all of us who stayed? The psychological implications of what Seth was describing were deeply troubling. He wasn't just watching a competitor's career out of professional interest, he was obsessively monitoring Cody's every move, hoping to see failure because Cody's success made Seth question his own choices and worth. Seth's voice became even more strained as he continued, and then Cody came back. He came back to WWE and immediately became the center of everything. The storylines, the attention, the opportunities one had been fighting for my entire career, they just handed them to Cody like he never left. And I hated him for it. I hated him so much that it consumed me. The raw honesty of that admission was shocking. WWE performers rarely acknowledge real backstage politics or genuine negative feelings toward other wrestlers on camera, but Seth was doing exactly that with a level of detail and emotion that suggested this was far more real than scripted. But the most disturbing part of Seth's confession came when he started explaining how his obsession with Cody had affected his personal life and mental health. "I started measuring every success I had against what Cody was doing," Seth admitted. "If I had a great match, my first thought wasn't satisfaction with my own performance, it was whether my match was better than Cody's last match. If I got positive reactions from fans, I immediately wondered if they were reacting to me or just comparing me favorably to Cody in that moment." Seth paused, and his voice cracked slightly as he continued, "I couldn't enjoy my own accomplishments anymore because I was so fixated on what Cody was accomplishing. Every championship I won felt empty because Cody was winning championships too. Every moment that should have been about me celebrating my career became about wondering whether I was keeping pace with Cody Rhodes." The psychological term for what Seth was describing is comparative obsession, and it's a genuinely destructive pattern that can lead to depression, anxiety, and complete loss of self-worth. Hearing a professional wrestler describe experiencing this pattern in such detail was deeply uncomfortable because it revealed real psychological struggle rather than manufactured drama. Seth then addressed what may have been the darkest admission in the entire segment. "When Cody got injured last year, you want to know what my first emotion was? It wasn't concern. It wasn't sympathy. It was relief. For just a moment, before I caught myself and felt disgusted with my own thoughts, I felt relief that Cody couldn't compete because that meant I didn't have to compare myself to him for a while." The camera captured Seth's face as he made this admission, and the genuine shame and self-loathing in his expression suggested this wasn't acting. This was someone confessing something he deeply regretted feeling, and the vulnerability of that moment was almost too intimate to be broadcast to millions of viewers. "That's when I knew something was wrong with me," Seth continued. "That's when I realized this wasn't healthy competition or professional rivalry. This was obsession. This was me tying my entire sense of self-worth to another person's career in a way that was destroying me from the inside." What Seth described next revealed just how deeply this obsession had infiltrated every aspect of his life. He talked about how his relationships with other wrestlers had suffered because he couldn't stop talking about Cody, comparing their work to Cody's, and viewing every interaction through the lens of how it related to his rivalry with Cody. He admitted that conversations with his family had become dominated by his fixation on Cody to the point where his loved ones had expressed concern about his mental state. "My wife told me that I talk about Cody Rhodes more than I talk about my own career accomplishments," Seth revealed. "She said it was like I was more invested in Cody's story than my own, and she was worried about what that meant for my mental health. And she was right. She was completely right." The fact that Seth was bringing his real-life family into this confession added another layer of discomfort to the segment. This wasn't just blurring the lines between character and reality, this was completely demolishing those lines and exposing genuine personal struggles that seemed far too raw for entertainment purposes. Seth's confession took an even darker turn when he started analyzing why Cody had become his obsession rather than any other wrestler. "I've competed against everyone," Seth said. "Roman, Dean, AJ, Edge, Kevin, Finn, every main event talent in this company. But none of them got under my skin the way Cody does. And I think I finally understand why. Cody Rhodes represents everything I'm afraid I'm not." Seth then laid out a devastating self-analysis that was painful to watch. "Cody is the son of a legend who managed to step out of his father's shadow and create his own legacy. I'm constantly trying to prove I belong in conversations about the greatest of all time, but I don't have that heritage, that pedigree. Cody left WWE and succeeded on his own terms, building something from nothing. I've never had the courage to bet on myself that way. I've always stayed where it was safe." Cody came back to WWE and immediately became the sympathetic hero everyone was rooting for. "Meanwhile, I've been doing this for over a decade and I still have people questioning whether I'm actually a top guy or just someone who's been positioned as a top guy by the company. Cody has something I don't have, and no matter how many championships I win or how many main events I work, I can't figure out how to get it." The insecurity and self-doubt in Seth's voice was palpable. This was someone having a genuine crisis of identity and self-worth, and whether this was a work shoot or real emotions being exploited for television, it was deeply uncomfortable to witness. But Seth wasn't finished with his psychological excavation. What he said next revealed the true depth of his obsession and why it had become so unhealthy. "The worst part is that I've realized my obsession with Cody isn't really about Cody at all," Seth admitted. "It's about me and my own fears and insecurities. Cody Rhodes could disappear tomorrow and I'd just find someone else to obsess over, some other measuring stick to prove I'm not good enough. The problem isn't Cody. The problem is that I don't know who Seth Rollins is if he's not comparing himself to someone else." This level of self-awareness combined with inability to change the destructive pattern is a hallmark of serious psychological struggle. Seth was essentially diagnosing himself with an identity crisis on camera while admitting he didn't know how to fix it. The segment reached its emotional climax when Seth directly addressed Cody, even though Cody wasn't present. "Cody, if you're watching this, I need you to understand something. This rivalry, this obsession, this whatever you want to call it between us, it's not about you. It's never been about you. You're just living your life and pursuing your career, and I've turned you into some kind of symbol of everything I think I'm lacking. That's not fair to you, and it's destroying me. Seth's voice broke completely at this point. I don't know how to let this go. I don't know how to stop measuring myself against you. I don't know how to find my own identity without using you as the template. And that terrifies me because it means I've given you power over my entire sense of self, and you didn't even ask for it. The segment ended with Seth staring directly into the camera with tears in his eyes. I'm Seth Rollins. I'm a multiple-time world champion. I've main event WrestleMania. I've done everything you're supposed to do in this business to prove you're successful. So why do I feel like a failure every time I see Cody Rhodes succeed? Why can't I just be happy with my own career without constantly comparing it to his? Seth dropped his head into his hands as the camera slowly pulled back, and the segment faded to black with no resolution, no defiant promise of revenge, no traditional wrestling closure. Just a man struggling with psychological demons that he couldn't defeat with physicality or bravado. The immediate reaction to this segment has been unprecedented in WWE history. Social media exploded with fans debating whether what they just witnessed was brilliant storytelling or exploitation of real mental health struggles. Mental health advocates praised WWE for portraying psychological crisis realistically but also questioned whether it was appropriate to use such serious issues for entertainment. Wrestlers from across the industry, both in WWE and other promotions, posted cryptic messages that suggested they related to the feelings Seth expressed. Several admitted to struggling with similar comparative obsessions and identity issues, revealing that Seth's confession had touched on something many performers experience but rarely discuss publicly. The most significant response came from Cody Rhodes himself, who posted a simple message that read, "Brother, we should talk. Not for cameras. Just us." The compassion and concern in that message suggested that even Cody recognized this had crossed from storyline into something that needed real human connection to address. WWE officials are reportedly divided on whether the segment was a success or a mistake. Some see it as groundbreaking television that addressed real psychological issues in ways that wrestling has never done before. Others worry that they exploited Seth's genuine struggles for ratings and created a situation where the line between performance and reality is so blurred that it could cause real harm. There are also concerns about how this storyline can continue without further exploiting sensitive mental health topics. If Seth's obsession with Cody is genuinely causing him psychological distress, then building storylines around that obsession could make the problem worse rather than better. Now here's the question that's going to determine how you view this entire segment. Do you think Seth Rollins was delivering a brilliant, emotionally honest performance that creates compelling television, or do you think WWE crossed a line by using real mental health struggles as content? And here's the deeper question that gets to the heart of modern wrestling. Should performers be expected to expose their genuine psychological vulnerabilities for our entertainment, or is there a responsibility to protect wrestlers' mental health even if it means less authentic storytelling? Because what we witnessed wasn't just a backstage segment. It was a window into the psychological cost of living your life in comparison to others, of tying your self-worth to external measures of success, and of losing your sense of identity in the pursuit of validation. Tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced the kind of comparative obsession that Seth described, where someone else's success makes you feel like you're failing even when you're objectively doing well? And do you think Seth can overcome this obsession with Cody, or is this psychological pattern going to define and potentially destroy the rest of his career? And here's the most important question: if Seth Rollins genuinely needs help dealing with these psychological issues, is it WWE's responsibility to provide that support even if it means taking him off television, or should the show always come first? Because whether this segment was worked or shoot, whether it was brilliant or exploitative, one thing is undeniable: Seth Rollins just showed vulnerability in ways that professional wrestlers are taught never to show, and the consequences of that vulnerability, both positive and negative, are going to reshape how we think about mental health, identity, and obsession in professional wrestling.